criminal justice system. Senator Hancock believes that California's correctional system is an expensive failure and requires a fundamental restructuring. I can attest to Senator Hancock's invaluable efforts to reduce prison overcrowding at the state level and bring rehabilitation back to the community. Senator Hancock has also introduced legislation to provide services and education to inmates while still in state prison, so they are ready to return to our communities. Secondly, in terms of government reform, Senator Hancock has vigorously championed eliminating the two-thirds budget voting requirement that caused such gridlock in our state and was successful in those efforts. While in the Assembly, Senator Hancock further authored the California Clean Money and Fair Elections Act, which sought to provide full public financing for statewide elections. This is a goal she continues to support vigorously today. And finally, in just one more area of emphasis, Senator Hancock has dedicated herself to improving our state's schools. As head of Region 9 of the U.S. Department of Education during the Clinton administration, Senator Hancock launched after-school, college preparedness, and other initiatives. She helped schools in California receive billions of dollars in federal assistance. In the state legislature, Senator Hancock has fought tuition increases and deep cuts to community college, CSU, and UC budgets. She's authored legislation that will greatly enhance school-to-career education for California high school students to prepare them for the jobs, the real jobs in our new economy. Please welcome me in welcoming Senator Loni Hancock.
Because I was indeed shaped by the social movements in Berkeley, California in the 1960s. From civil rights to anti-war to the very first Earth Day that we had in Berkeley, all of those things shaped a generation of us. Many of us are here today, and I want to thank the young people who came here who are working on the minimum wage. And I always want to tell young people, you've got to come to Sacramento too. We don't see you in Sacramento. People think you don't vote. People think you don't care. There's always a lot of respectful attention when you come in an organized way. So please, we have some minimum wage legislation in the Capitol as well and other things that we're working on, and we need you. So thank you so very, very much for being here. I just have to say, I see people from Jay Charlin, who is the first person, I've got to tell you, parent nursery school, we're in parent nursery school together, and one day she said to me, why don't you stop complaining about the war in Vietnam and call women for peace? Which I did. That was the first political thing I ever did. I ended up sitting at a table collecting signatures to boycott the Dow Chemical Company that made napalm. And then signed up for the SHEER campaign for Congress, and the first person, Andre Rolfing at that time, standing outside the door where we began what became the Community for New Politics and later Berkeley Citizens Action and everybody. And all I can say is, everybody, those values and those ideas that we have then are needed now by this country and this state more than ever. So this is about an intergenerational effort to keep on keeping on. I did go to Sacramento. I said at the time I wanted to do three things: education, the environment, and the economy. And I do education still, and I just want to call out Stephanie Allen, who is making career technical education happen at Berkeley High School. Everything takes a champion. And I visited the Fire Academy at Berkeley High School. It's fantastic. You know, you can learn everything from physiology to chemistry to how to be physically fit. If you're taking some classes in thinking about being a first responder. So, like this, and we also know from research this keeps kids in school who might drop out otherwise, and it also makes them realize why higher education matters, so they go on to community college or four-year college. I've served on the Education Committee every year in the Senate, and now I work very closely with my good friend, Senator Carol Liu, who chairs education. I sit on her committee. I chair public safety. She sits on my committee. We try to get it done. It's called, you know, girlfriends helping girlfriends. So, yes, it matters. And, you know, the environment has shifted quite a bit from our many environmental concerns back in the early 70s, because the environmental movement came a little later, to what Van Jones has now very aptly named catastrophic climate change. It isn't just change, it isn't just warming, it's catastrophic change. And it could, in fact, not for the young people here tonight, but for your children, mean a planet that is no longer beautiful and very difficult to sustain life on. So I serve on the Environmental Quality Committee. I've done a lot of work on environmental issues. We'll continue to do so. And that, you know, segues right over into the third E, which is economic equity. And how we build an economy as if people matter, and how we end the terrible income inequality that our country is facing. Raising the minimum wage is one of the most important and immediate things that we can do for everyone. I do want to tell you we also need to change the tax code in various ways. This last week, Senator Mark DeSaulnier and I are joint authors on a bill, SB 1372, that would recalibrate the corporate tax rate so the rate of taxation for any corporation would be a direct function of how much there is a difference between the CEO's pay and the median worker's salary. You know, we subsidize all kinds of things in the tax. We try to make the tax code work for people. That's one of the things it does. That's why you have some tax deductions. We allow tax deductions for research and development because we believe some people do that it benefits the whole economy. There's no reason we can't have tax rates that encourage and incentivize social responsibility and care for the people that work in any given business. So, our little bill made its way out of its first committee on last Thursday, I will say with a big heavy lift from Robert Reich, who came and testified for it. He is so clear and can explain complicated issues in such a really wonderful way. He was just extraordinarily helpful to us. And I wish Barbara was still here because she should know that we also just started a new caucus. It's called the EPIC Caucus, End Poverty in California. Some of you with history may remember there was one once. We need to bring it back. And have had some fascinating meetings with, I didn't even know this, there's a Center for Poverty Research at UC Davis. There's another one at Stanford. They came and talked to us. Turns out the cost of housing and the cost of education, they think, are the two biggest drivers of California, which has the second highest poverty rate in the country when you use the new federal formula, which takes into account the cost of living. We have 23% of Californians living in poverty. So we need to do a great deal to change that. But along the way, to try to make all this happen, I did discover some of the barriers we face. And this is something that, you know, when the California Nurses Association sponsored public financing of elections, which was a bill that I had carried and that we couldn't get out of the legislature, they said their first priority was universal health care. Their second priority was publicly financed elections. They realized they couldn't achieve their first priority until they achieved their second priority. And let me tell you, we face that in all kinds of ways. In case people didn't know, it costs $700,000 to run a contested primary in a state election. Because of the new top two primary, where in districts like this, where ordinarily the election would be over after the June primary, you have to run again, two Democrats against each other probably. In November, that means you have to raise twice as much money. Over 90% of the contributions to the average political campaign come from PACs and corporations. Labor is outspent at least 5-to-1 by business PACs. This is not a recipe for success for any of the issues that we care about. And given the recent Supreme Court rulings, I've also gotten very consumed with thinking about two-thirds votes and what they do. The fact that we now have a Congress and a Senate where the saying, "I will filibuster," means that you have to get a two-thirds vote for the simplest legislation that will move the country forward, is absolutely wrong. And I love the people that are up there saying they want to overturn Citizens United. We're passing legislation about that, but seriously, we need a new Supreme Court. Obama needs to be able to get the judges that he's nominated confirmed. Two-thirds votes are anathema, everybody. And that's going to be a very, very important thing to change. I have a bill that would increase the fines on oil refineries and other major chemical plants and other things that have a catastrophic event similar to the Chevron fire that blew up because a lot of different communities. That bill, such a modest little bill, raised the fines for that from $10,000 to $100,000. Now, if you're a company making $32 billion a year, let me tell you, this is still barely the cost of doing business. We could not get that bill. We got it out of the Senate. We couldn't get it off the assembly floor. There are people who are terrified of the contribution power of oil refineries. It's why we need public financing. It's why we need people power. Pardon? Well, we need public financing. That's what they call it clean money. But, yeah, it's why we need it, and why we really do need it to get the kind of tax reform that we need. I mean, Mark Desaulniers and I, Senator Desaulniers and I really think what we're doing with our bill and CEO ratios is we're opening a door to a big conversation that we need to have. Everybody's wringing their hands about income inequality now. We want to show that we can do something and that we can put out legislation like that. And we'll see how far it goes. We got it out of the first committee. That's what it takes. My first year doing public financing legislation, I couldn't get it out of the first committee. Eventually, we got it passed by one house, but not the other. Eventually, when we tried our pilot project for Secretary of State, we actually got it out of both houses and signed by the governor. And people don't get it yet. They don't get that it would cost about $10,000 a year for every adult Californian. That would be like 2 cups of coffee and a bran muffin, everybody. Is democracy worth it? Because then people could, after public financing, they couldn't spend a dime of other money, either from their own wallets if they were rich or just themselves, and they would be accountable only to the people they represent. Wouldn't that be nice? We have a real question. So just 2 more things. I am working very, very hard right now in the prison system. I was given it. Sort of under protest. I have found it fascinating because it is such a waste of money and such a waste of the human spirit in every way. It can be changed. It needs to be changed. I want to thank Ann Wiles, who's been just an incredible advocate for all of this and really making some of the solitary confinement issues real. Enormous help. But there are many more issues. We have to have rehabilitation inside the prison system. We have to have halfway houses, mental health. The prisons are our new mental health hospitals. But you can be a correctional officer, a prison guard with a GED. We don't train people in what they're, either the guards. We have very little rehabilitation. We are working to change that under realignment, and we're going to need all of your help on that. Again, I thank God every day for the 3-judge panel. And Tony Henderson, who really is the person that insists we get it right. But, finally, as we all go forward together, this really great adventure of American democracy, and can we get an equitable system and sustain it over time with all the pressures that the modern world faces. I am so glad to have all of you guys there with me. And remember, we used to say the local is the only universal. We build a corner of America, think locally, act locally. There is a very important issue that's happening right now, and Berkeley is taking the lead on that, and I think we're going to win, and that is really the fight to stop the privatization of the United States Postal Service. You all probably know how insidious it is that the Postal Service is literally the only entity of any sort, profit or nonprofit, that's been told it has to prepay all of its pensions and employee benefits for 75 years, right? And clearly an effort to privatize, and then the effort to limit what the services the post office can provide and sell off the great historic post offices. Berkeley's being one of them, but it isn't only. Lots of post offices like Santa Monica, Venice. What do these places have in common? Progressive places across the country. And we're fighting back now. And the Bronx is fighting back. Barbara Lee has been right there with us every step of the way. The Berkeley City Council has been there every step of the way. And we're now getting, the Inspector General of the Postal Service says this is wrong. Maybe we can restore some of the things the Postal Service used to do, like banking services. Remember that? There are many inner city communities with no bank. And there's so many other things, internet service, fax service, things that the post office could do. So, and then there was the report that just came out from, the Historic Preservation Commission, saying that there should be a cease and desist on selling the historic post offices until these issues can be worked out. So my idea is that Berkeley should volunteer to be the first post office to restore banking. Because I know there's a lot of it this year, but Nancy's here today too. legislation that got that first got the state legislature on record as opposing the sale of the Berkeley post office, but then we expanded it and got a resolution asking Congress to support some of the legislation that's before Congress. Ron Wyden, the congressman, one of the members of Congress from Oregon, has a really good bill.
Sanders.
And Bernie Sanders in the Senate has a bill. And so there's a lot to be done. But again, what starts here makes a difference all over the country and all over the world. And that's such a responsibility, but it's also such an opportunity. And it is such a great work to be involved in. And we have all been involved in this together. And I just thank you so very much for everything that you do